Have you ever walked away from someone and later realized you were the best thing that ever happened to them? Not because you needed their validation, not because you were trying to prove anything, but because your absence started revealing truths that your presence once quietly carried. That is the powerful energy surrounding this reading right now. Someone who once had access to your heart, your attention, and your loyalty is now facing the reality of what they lost. And the truth is, it's hitting them much harder than they ever expected. Because sometimes people believe they can walk away from a connection and life will simply continue the same way. They think the world will remain steady. They believe that the person they left behind will always remain available, waiting in the same place emotionally. But the universe has a very mysterious way of correcting that belief. Time passes, energy shifts, and suddenly the person they once took for granted becomes the very person they cannot stop thinking about. Before we move deeper into this message, remember something very important. Only take what resonates with you and leave the rest. Energies flow differently for everyone who listens to this reading, and the messages meant for you will naturally feel clear in your heart. Now, the energy I'm feeling here is very intense, and it revolves around realization. Someone connected to you believed they had more time. They believed the connection would always be there in the background of their life. Maybe they thought they could come back whenever they wanted. Maybe they believed you would always understand their silence, their distance, or the way they handled the situation. But what they did not expect was the shift that happened after you stepped back. Because when your energy left their space, something changed around them. The warmth that once surrounded them quietly disappeared. The emotional comfort they once felt around you is no longer there. And now they are beginning to notice the difference between what they once had and what they are experiencing now. This realization did not happen overnight. At first, they may have distracted themselves. They may have focused on other things, other people, or other situations. They may have tried to convince themselves that walking away was the right decision. But time has a way of removing distractions. Eventually, the noise fades. And when the noise fades, people are left alone with their thoughts. That is where the real awakening begins. Because now they're starting to remember things differently. Moments they once overlooked now carry a deeper meaning. The way you supported them, the way you listened, the way your presence brought a certain calmness into their life. Things that once felt ordinary are now appearing extraordinary in their memory. And that is the moment when karma often begins to reveal itself. Karma is not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes karma is simply awareness. Sometimes it is the quiet realization that the person you lost was far more valuable than you ever understood at the time. It is the moment when someone looks back and sees clearly what their ego once refused to acknowledge. The energy surrounding this connection suggests that someone is currently standing in that exact moment. They are beginning to see the truth of the situation. The excuses they once told themselves are fading, and what remains is the undeniable feeling that they lost someone who genuinely cared for them. What makes this even more powerful is that this realization often arrives when the other person, you, has already started moving forward. When you begin reclaiming your peace, your confidence, and your emotional balance, the energetic dynamic changes completely. The person who once felt comfortable in your presence suddenly feels the absence of that energy very strongly. And that absence becomes the teacher. Because some lessons only arrive when someone realizes what they no longer have. Some truths only become visible when the door they once ignored begins to close. And right now, the universe is placing this person face to face with the consequences of their choices. What they are experiencing is not random. It is a powerful emotional awakening. And the deeper we move into this reading, the more clearly the cards will reveal exactly why losing you has become a lesson they cannot escape. Now, as we move deeper into this reading, the energy surrounding your situation begins to reveal something very powerful. This is not just about someone missing you for a moment or feeling temporary sadness. The energy here feels like a deep emotional realization that has been building slowly over time. Someone connected to you is beginning to understand something they did not see clearly before. And the truth is, this realization is not comfortable for them. It carries weight, reflection, and a kind of emotional awakening that cannot easily be ignored. The first card that appears in this reading is the Tower. This card represents sudden realizations and moments when illusions collapse. The Tower energy often arrives when someone believed they understood a situation, but later discovers they were completely wrong about it. Something in this person's life has recently shaken their perspective. It may have been triggered by seeing you moving forward, hearing about you through someone else, or simply reaching a quiet moment where memories began returning unexpectedly. The Tower does not always represent destruction in the physical world. More often, it represents the destruction of false beliefs. This person may have once believed that losing you would not affect their life in any significant way. They may have convinced themselves that they could move on easily, that the connection would fade, or that you would always remain emotionally available in the background of their life. But now that belief has collapsed. The truth has started to appear in their mind in ways they cannot ignore. They are realizing that the connection they walked away from was far more meaningful than they understood at the time. The emotional stability, the understanding, the presence you once brought into their life now appears very different in their memory. After this realization begins to unfold, the second card appearing is the Five of Cups. This card carries the energy of regret and emotional reflection. It represents someone looking back at the past and recognizing that something important slipped away. This person may now be thinking about moments they once overlooked. They may remember conversations where you showed care or understanding. They may remember the way you supported them or the way your presence made certain moments in their life feel easier. At the time, those moments may have seemed ordinary to them. But the Five of Cups suggests that they are now seeing those memories through a completely different perspective. There is a quiet sadness connected to this card. It represents the feeling of realizing that something valuable was lost and that returning to the past may not be as simple as they once imagined. What makes this situation even more complex is that they may not openly express this regret. Pride often makes it difficult for someone to admit that they made a mistake. Instead of speaking about these emotions, they may carry them privately. But even when regret is hidden, it continues to grow internally. The third card appearing in this reading is the King of Swords. This card represents someone who usually relies on logic, pride, and control rather than emotional vulnerability. This person may appear very composed on the outside. They may continue presenting themselves as confident and unaffected. But internally, the King of Swords energy suggests someone who is constantly thinking. They analyze situations deeply once the truth begins to appear. This person may now replay moments from the past in their mind. They may think about conversations they had with you and wonder how things could have been different. They may reflect on decisions they made during the connection and begin questioning whether those choices were truly the right ones. The King of Swords often represents someone who struggles to admit emotional mistakes because they are used to maintaining control over their life. But when karma begins teaching its lessons, even the most controlled mind cannot completely avoid emotional truth. And that is exactly what is happening here. This person is slowly realizing that losing you was not simply a small event in their life. It was a turning point that changed something important in their emotional world. The fourth card appearing is the Nine of Swords. This card represents sleepless nights, overthinking, and emotional stress that lives inside someone's mind. The Nine of Swords appears when someone cannot escape their own thoughts. This person may find themselves thinking about you during quiet moments, especially late at night when distractions fade away. Memories may return suddenly. They may remember things they said, things they did not say, or moments where they could have handled the connection differently. The Nine of Swords energy suggests that their mind is now carrying a heavy emotional weight. This is not simply sadness. It is the realization that they may have lost something meaningful because of their own actions. Sometimes karma appears exactly like this. Not as punishment from the outside world, but as reflection that takes place inside someone's mind. They may now wonder about your life. They may think about whether you have moved on or whether someone else is now receiving the love and attention they once had from you. These thoughts can create a deep emotional pressure that continues building over time. The fifth card appearing in this reading is the Six of Cups. This card carries the energy of nostalgia and emotional memories. It often appears when someone begins looking back at a connection with a sense of longing. The Six of Cups suggests that the memories they hold of you are filled with warmth. They may remember the comfort they felt when speaking with you. They may remember the emotional safety that existed between you. There may have been a sense of familiarity in your connection that felt natural and effortless. Now those memories return to them with greater clarity, because now they understand that not every connection carries that same emotional harmony. They may interact with other people, but something about those interactions may feel different compared to what they once experienced with you. The Six of Cups energy suggests that they revisit these memories quietly. Certain songs, places, or conversations may suddenly remind them of you. And every time those memories appear, the realization becomes stronger. What they had with you was not ordinary. The final card appearing in this reading is the Wheel of Fortune. This card represents karmic cycles, destiny, and the natural balance of energy that unfolds over time. The Wheel of Fortune reminds us that every choice creates a ripple. Every action eventually returns in some form. When this card appears in a connection like yours, it suggests that what is unfolding now is part of a karmic cycle reaching its turning point. This person is now facing the emotional consequences of their decisions. And the interesting part of karmic energy is that it often becomes strongest when the other person begins moving forward. Your energy may have shifted since the connection changed. You may have started focusing more on your own healing, your own peace, and your own growth. When someone begins reclaiming their emotional power in that way, the dynamic of the connection changes completely. The person who once felt comfortable having your presence in their life suddenly begins to feel the absence of it very clearly. And that absence becomes the teacher. Because sometimes people only understand the value of a connection after they no longer have access to it. Sometimes clarity arrives after distance. And right now, the energy suggests that this person is standing in that moment of realization. They are beginning to understand that your presence brought something rare into their life, something genuine, something that cannot easily be replaced. And the deeper truth they are now facing is that losing you created a lesson they never expected to experience. As we close this reading, the energy here shows someone finally realizing the value of what they lost. Your absence has created a deep moment of reflection for them, and the truth of the connection is becoming impossible for them to ignore. But this is also about your journey. You are stepping into your own strength and recognizing your worth. Sometimes distance brings the clarity that was missing before. If this message resonated with you, take what resonates with you and leave the rest. Trust that the universe always balances things in its own time.